Hey everyone, welcome to the Fail to Find podcast episode 2. I'm Ben with Bathroom Brews MTG, and today I have my fabulous co-host Wes.
Hey, I'm here. I'm Wes. Friendo Ben.
Glad to have you on the podcast. Hopefully you'll be my regular co-host, so you can get used to him going forward.
Yeah.
So today we'll be talking about a few different things. We'll have the Lord of the Rings spoilers. We'll be covering those, the few that have come out already. And I'll be going over my RCQ results, which aren't great, and some funny things that happened there this past weekend. So, without further ado, actually, one last thing. I do have a special announcement. I am officially writing for the Commander's Herald. I'll have a link to that article and the accompanying video in the video description below. So check that out. It really helps me out. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help feed that algorithm. All right, all that housekeeping's out of the way. Spoiler time. So we had, what is this, 12, 9, 13 cards total spoiled, I think, for Lord of the Rings, not including basic
13
lands.
card 13 cards for the set, and then
Some commander cards too, it looks like.
yeah, we'll get into the weirdness of the commander cards
I'm excited, but
later.
let's go over some of the cards that some of these I think should have been commander cards, but they're main set. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm sure we can talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit later on. So the first one is Tom Bombadil. Bombadil? I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings, so bear with me.
Bombadil. I'm like the third most, well, no, I'm probably like the fourth most knowledgeable person in our friend group about Lord of the Rings. But Tom Bombadil is he's not in the movies. They took him out of the movies because he doesn't really contribute to doing all that much, but people really like him. Uh it's quite funny. One of our friends has a Sagas deck with Atraxa, and he immediately went, "Ah, god damn it," seeing a 5-color Sagas commander.
Yeah, that's always been my, and I don't want to say complaint, but I think my issue with some of these new commanders they're printing is they're printing the best commander for a niche strategy when it feels like it used to be more like um, here is a strategy you want to do, find a commander and make it work. So we know, like for shrines, we have Go Shintai, but let's get into the card before we let's
Yeah.
read that out here. So it's 5 mana, so it's Wooburg, so white, blue, black, red, green for a 4/4 legendary creature God Bard, and as long as there are 4 or more lore counters among sagas you control, Tom has hexproof and indestructible. And the second line of text is whenever the final chapter ability, that's whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a saga card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest onto the bottom of your library in a random order. This ability only triggers once each turn.
Yes.
That's interesting. So it's a once each turn and not only during your turn. So if you have instant speed proliferation, which you have a evolution stage for green if you play any fetches or like evolving wilds, any
Yeah, you've
that
got
mostly that.
Karn's Bastion.
Yep.
You've got Instance now with blue because we literally just came out of a set full of proliferation.
Yeah. So
Um,
this
yeah, there's so many options.
yeah, this card definitely seems like it'll be a powerhouse, especially if you can get the ability to trigger like more than once each turn cycle. So if you can get it potentially 4 times each turn, you'd be digging until you hit a saga card. So you actually will never miss with this. It's not like,
Mm-hmm.
oh god, there's some cards that I can't think of any off the top of my head. But
Well,
you're
it's not like Cascade or something like that, where like you have to build in such a way where you like might miss something that's important. You're gonna hit one of the things that you care about.
exactly. And let me check. I'm checking one card. Um, yeah, I wasn't sure if the God Tree was like that, but it's the same exact thing. So yeah, I think this is just an incredibly powerful Saga commander, especially with all the proliferation we just got in Phyrexia Albi one. We don't know what we'll be getting in March of the Machine, so we might get more proliferation. Probably not, but
Oh,
who's to say?
and we're getting sagas in that set.
And
We're
we are
getting
getting
yeah with the flip Praetors, and that'll be interesting because they flip back into being themselves at their final thing. So you'd search for a saga after that, put that onto the battlefield. You wouldn't lose anything. You'd actually just gain another saga.
yeah, and same thing with a lot of the oh my god, Kamigawa.
Kamigawa, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of those you also have that same thing where you don't actually lose the saga; it just flips over. So if you have ways of bouncing sagas back to your hand and then
Hmm.
accelerating them, Dominaria, you just have read ahead, so you can just play a saga and instantly trigger this ability and just dig for the next best saga. Um,
Yeah, if you've got like a saga from Dominaria that doesn't do anything, you can just immediately have it go to the last one, dig for another saga, see if
yeah,
it hits something better.
and we're talking about Dominaria United, just so everyone's aware. That was the
Correct.
only sagas that ever read ahead. Um, the fact that you get 5 colors mean you have access to cards like Muldrotha, which will be really good in this deck, being able to just recast like even Dominaria United sagas just to trigger the ability again.
You importantly, something you can get is red sagas that you couldn't do with like Atraxa. So
Yep.
there's I looked into this. There's like 22 red sagas or sagas with red in them.
Yeah.
One of them importantly is Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker. The
Yep.
the Fable Breaker,
Yep. If you can
Fable of
get
the Mirror Breaker, because you can get like Evolution Sage copies and things like that to be able to proliferate even more. Um,
with blue, you can make so many non-legendary token copies. Like the dream is you make a non-legendary token copy of this commander with like Spark Double or Vile Duplication, using the Kiki Jiki clone, making a token copy of it because the clone says non-legendary creature. So as long as a token's non-legendary, you can just keep making copies of your commander. Um, and since
Helm of the
each
Hosts.
Helm of the Host, and since each card says you can only resolve once each turn, um, that means if you have 5 copies of it or you blink it, you can resolve more than one copy of the ability essentially. So I'm really curious to see how people are going to instantaneously break this.
Yeah,
Also, it makes Vornclex and Doubling Season and those types of effects actually better in the Sagas deck because you might not necessarily want to skip ahead chapters, but with this commander, it almost feels like you probably want to since the last part of Sagas are usually what you want more than anything.
yeah, because the way that I've seen sagas happen is you want to trigger sagas as fast as you can, and then max reanimate them and trigger them all over again, and just get a bunch of value. Like you're just getting. It doesn't even matter if the triggers aren't great. You're just getting so many of them that who cares?
Yep, and it's important to note that this is sagas are an enchantment type card type, so you run an enchanter sub theme with this deck. So any cards that let you draw off enchantments entering or the constellation ability, you can really abuse. I know you have a Yarok Enchantress deck that has like Doomwake Giant and Brain
Oh yeah.
Magnet. Although Brain Magnet doesn't really do anything here. Thinking more so Doom Giant. Um,
Well,
being
you get
able,
things. I was gonna say you get things like Doomwake Giant and then Eidolon of Blossoms
yep,
triggers with Tom Bombadil. Um, like there's quite a few things. There's some cheeky constellation cards that like if you wanted to build using them, you can. There's only one red constellation card, so it doesn't add that much to the deck in that
gotcha.
front, but and it's a damage based one, which means that you can do some crazy stuff with it, but it's not as crazy as we already had the black one that makes each opponent lose 1 life.
Yeah, so there are definitely going to be a lot of ways you abuse this. Is Sigil of the Empty Throne? I don't remember if it's
That one is
cast.
a
It's cast.
cast.
Still great in the
Yeah.
deck, regardless, because
Hmm.
you still cast some number of sagas. Um, yeah, I mean this is gonna be the go-to saga commander. I think fortunately and unfortunately, um, like I said kind of earlier, I like the commander and I like when they do this with a strategy, but I also miss when you had to kind of work for a strategy like sagas where you had, okay, how can we do this? Well, Trax is probably the best option, but you don't get
Well,
red, so how can we creatively deck build around that? Or I don't want to use a Traxxas, so what other color commanders can I use to make sagas work? um, I don't think every strategy needs a de facto best commander for the strategy, especially in 5 colors. While I understand why they did it, it's I feel you're going to see a lot of decks that are just the same Tom decks, and there's not going to be a lot of variation in them, in my opinion.
well, I would actually say the opposite. I think there's the opportunity for creativity because he's 5 color, and we've gotten enough sagas now to where if somebody was like, yo, I just want to focus on these sagas from this set, they can run all the sagas from that set now and like build a deck focusing around that. Whether it's good or not is a different matter, but in the aspect of fun, I think you now have some wiggle room. Uh you aren't just pinned down in a couple colors.
That's
if that
fair.
makes any sense.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, yeah, you can. It's definitely like something that I don't disagree with you in any way. We'll just see what people do. I think our play group is more unique in that way, where we're more willing to play a lot of jank things.
That's
Um,
fair.
so I'm more concerned about like in the wild, like what you're gonna see either if you play on Moto or play on Spell Table or go to your LGS. I
In
don't know how many people are gonna be like, I want Dominaria and Dominaria United Sagas only as a deck. I don't
well,
think you're gonna see that too often.
in the wild, I think that's gonna yeah. I think there's gonna be some busted things. Like we didn't even talk about like Urza's Saga just
Oh, I
in
didn't even
this
think
deck.
about that. Yeah, that's cracked.
Hmm.
That's so good. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
that
colorless land, so I don't know how much you actually want to use, but it's still obviously just so good in the deck. You probably just put it in anyways
you just put it in.
and make Constructs and get Soul Ring or whatever out from your deck.
Yeah, you just never want it in your opening hand. You want to just hit it off of his ability, and you get an extra land.
Yeah.
Boom.
Uh, this is great. Let's talk about the next. Do you want to go over the next very controversial card? We're not going to get into the controversy here. Feel free to go on Reddit and Twitter, and you could look at that yourself.
Yeah, I don't
It's dumb, and if you're mad at it, touch grass. All right, continuing on.
exactly. Yeah, well, I'll talk about it in sequence with the card next to it because they're both part of the same thing. So the first card is Aragorn and Arwen Wed, which is a 4 generic green white 3/6 vigilance human elf noble legendary creature. When this creature enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control, and you gain life equal to each other creature you control.
Enters battlefield or attacks.
Or attacks. Oh my god, I missed that. But
Voltron, baby.
Voltron baby. Classic Selesnya +1/+1 counters. The going wide deck. Um, but and you might be like, oh, that's not that powerful in this modern focused set. That's because it's part of the starter kit, which is made to introduce Lord of the Rings players or people that are interested in Lord of the Rings into Magic, so that we as Magic players can teach them how to play the game in a uh, sealed environment.
Interesting.
Uh,
So are those? I didn't watch any of the announcements because just it's tax season, so I'm dying.
oh
Um,
yeah,
is it? Are those like decks or are they like special packs?
there are two decks. It's a box deck. It's like one of the versus decks from way back when.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Or like the arena decks they have now, where it's like two decks for however much.
yeah. The other lead card is Sauron the Lidless Eye, which is 3 generic black red legendary creature avatar horror. He's a 4/4, and when he enters the battlefield, you gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn. You untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. And then for a generic, a black, a red, creatures you control gain +2/+0 until end of turn, and each opponent loses 2 life.
Okay, so let's talk about the first one, Argon and Aaron Wed. I feel like there's not much to say about this commander. It's first off, since this is I guess we didn't mention this is a modern legal set, so this is like a Modern Horizons 3,
Yeah,
essentially. Um, I don't think a lot of the cards we're gonna go over today. That's not true. At least the first few aren't gonna be played in modern. I think in any degree. Um, Argon and Aaron Wed. It's an
probably not.
elf and human, which are great tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in EDH, you have Elf Ball, so you can just do like Naya. Not sorry, Selesnya Elf Ball now, um, and blink this and get a bunch of counters on stuff and gain a bunch of life. It's boring. It's very straightforward, but it's powerful. Um, I'm probably gonna slot this into the 99 of my best deck. Maybe that deck more cares about 1/1 creatures, but getting counters on
Yeah.
stuff and gaining life if I have a lot of creatures doesn't seem like a bad thing. And it's a 3/6 vigilant, so it's not like it's a hard creature to attack into. And since it won't be tapping down, you can kind of swing and just put counters on everything.
If my Amel deck was built differently, I could put this in Amel.
True.
Uh, it's a decent blink. It's a decent blink target. If you have like a Bant blink deck or anything like that, it seems really good in those. Even if you're not getting like a bunch of life, you're getting life and counters, which can be very powerful.
Yep. one thing to note is that you put counters on each other creature you control and gain life for each other creature. So if this is your only creature out, nothing really happens. Just
Correct.
an important distinction. And now for Sauron the lidless eye, um, man, I want to
This
play
is
this.
such a. Oh, go.
I want to play this in my Hoffrey deck, but it's Rakdos.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say it's a really weird card. That first ability is so it's just a like act of treason on this creature, but it's so weird that that's just the ETB and then that part's done. But the second ability is so powerful in like a go wide deck. Like I'm tempted to put that in my goblins deck.
It
Like
is. So I like this is a commander is going to be one of those ones like Anya, where you're like, how do I build this? Oh, I just want infinite mana as fast as humanly possible in this deck, because that
y-
first line of text doesn't really matter in commander all that much, and
no.
so
Yeah.
I wish it said if it was like mana value 3 or less, gain control of it forever. If it's not like, I wish there was some stipulation so you could actually take something for not just a singular turn. Because it is a modern set, I think that's probably why they did it this way. Because if it was too good, you could be taking people's ornithopters from Hammer Time, and doing like janky things, or taking Esper Sentinels or Ragavans. So you could be doing things
Yeah.
like that in modern. But in Commander, it's that first line of text basically doesn't matter in 99% of cases.
Like it's pretty good as it's weirdly good as like an anti-Voltron thing, but like you take somebody's Voltron commander and hit them with it, but they probably are protected unless if I was running Sauron, like if Sauron is my commander, um you could either build like a go wide strategy and like your goal is to like pump creatures up like twice each turn and have like 5/1 goblins going at somebody, or you could like build around like an active treason style deck where you want to like remove shroud and hexproof and just like steal people's creatures, I guess. But
Yeah, it's like, so just my first thought, if I'm running this deck, one card I'm going to add to it is High Market. It's a colorless land that you can tap to sacrifice a creature and gain one like one life.
mm,
Um, and I think one of the secret lair lab MTG. Let me take a look. Because there is, I think, another one. Oh no, you just investigate. Never mind. Yeah, I would probably run like High Market and some amount of sack outlets. Not like a lot, but if Phyrexian Arena is one that you could run, because you're only in two colors, so you can give up the like the pips for it.
uh,
Not Phyrexian
a,
Arena. I'm sorry, Phyrexian Tower.
a card I think is necessary in this deck is Glaring Spotlight,
What's
which
that?
is it's a 1 mana artifact. I remember it from way back when I started playing EDH.
Get all
It's
this
from
text right. I'll be impressed. I have it pulled up in front of me.
oh I pulled it up
Oh,
myself
I
because I
thought you were
needed to
going
make
from
sure.
memory. Oh my
Nope,
lord.
I'm not gonna cheat the viewer like that and just make them think I know this card off the top of my head. So 1 mana artifact. Creatures your opponents control with hexproof can be the target of spells and abilities you control as though they didn't have hexproof, which is great for his first ability. And then 3 mana sacrifice it. Creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn and are unblockable this turn. So this card actually pairs well perfectly with Sauron. Because it works well for his first ability, so you can steal a creature. Because most people are doing hexproof now, more often, or full protection, which is just a different story in general. Um, Instead of shrouds, because if you're doing shroud as a Voltron commander, you're hurting yourself. Because you can't target yourself to put more stuff on your commander.
Yep.
But that second ability makes it to where all the things that you're probably buffing in your on your board later on, you can just give them unblockable.
Yeah. No, that sounds really good. That is kind of mean. Man, once we get to the RCQ stuff, Glaring Spotlight seems like a good sideboard card against auras, but that's a tangent for later on. Um, yeah, that this commander is definitely. I'm sure we'll see like some Phyrexian Arena combos with it, like Grave, just infinite. I think infinite mana combos are what we expect to see with this commander, and I'm sure you can find some in Rakdos that
I
aren't.
might I might just put him in my Mardu's Goblins deck
Yeah,
and just
he both these commanders seem like they're really interesting in the 99. I kind of like Sauron in a not Carador Ghost Chieftain. What's the black red one that goads everything when it enters? One of those. Um,
Uh,
oh God, why can't I remember it? It was like one of the starter precons they just released too. Oh, I'm pulling it up. It was Cardor Doomscourge.
oh yeah,
The 4-mana 4/3 when it enters the battlefield until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you. What's great about that is Sauron, when it enters, untaps the creature. So if you play Cardor and the next turn you play this, which you actually could because it's 4 into 5, you can take someone's best creature, untap it, and then everyone else will be shields down. So you just swing out the creature at the biggest threat, or just take the best creature for value.
yeah. Like it's also wild that his pump ability also just deals damage.
Well,
So
losing life. So you can combo this
yes.
with Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond
Oh
because it's life loss, so it triggers one of them.
yeah, it triggers one of them, and that's
Good
also
enough.
crazy. You can just end somebody's like it's a pump effect that can kill somebody before combat happens, so that way the creatures that you pumped are more efficient against the people that are left over,
Yep.
which is wild.
Um, and since it's life loss, it sucks you can't do any like infect shenanigans or like cool like enchantments or auras to like have it deal the damage. But it is instant speed, and there's no cap on how many times you can do it. Um, I don't know what the rate is. I'd have to think about like how good that rate truly is. Um, but I think 3 mana to give your team +2/+0, and then also deal. I'm sorry, have opponents lose a total of 6 life, assuming you're in like a 4-man pod, seems just reasonable. Like it's gonna be, I
Yeah.
think, a combo in the command zone. If this hits the board, kill it immediately. If it's in the 99, I think you're less concerned about it because people don't generally put combo pieces like this just in the 99 of decks. Because there aren't a lot of like Rakdos combo decks that I know of other than like Falcon Wrath. You
No,
know Falcon Wrath?
unless you have like a Jund combo deck and
Or
he's in
Jund.
there as like a payoff for having infinite mana.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of things, but we'll see what happens when it comes out. I'm
We'll
curious to
see.
see what people do with it. The next one is really interesting because there's also just a one serialized 1 of 1. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, I had a cough there. But this card actually comes in the bundle, so it'll be a bulk mythic, which will be nice.
It's just gonna be in the bundle? I didn't know
Yep,
that.
to my
That's gonna be
understanding.
rad.
If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below and drive that engagement. Um, so it's a 4 mana indestructible. The card's the One Ring. It's a 4 mana indestructible legendary artifact. It says when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. God, I want to play this with Shimmermere so bad. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. You can tap, put a burden counter on it, then draw a card for each burden counter on the ring. So, there's a few things I want to do with this, and you mentioned it. Um, you want to put a bunch of counters on this, proliferate a whole bunch, and then just give it to people and have them die, and then homeward path it with the trigger on the stack.
I realized something when I talked about that. Homeward Path only works on creatures, so you'd have to turn it into a
Oh, it
creature
does, doesn't
first.
it? Okay.
But I was like, I need to figure out a way to do this. There has to be a way. I mean, you can harmless offering it or other things. Like, there's other ways to gift it, but it's hard to return it. Um,
Yes.
that's the hard part. Which even still, having a card that you've drawn a bunch of cards, you hand it to somebody, kill them. It's still pretty good. It's like it doesn't kill everybody else at the board, but having a thing that they can't stop at their
Yep.
upkeep.
I mean, you could use Memnarch because it's 3 and a blue, gain control of target
Right.
artifact.
That would be
Um,
pretty good.
that's the only um instant way speed I can think of to get an artifact back. Um, the deck I would want to play this in is, I don't remember the name, so let me pull it up, and it's in blue. Um, Zerju, the Great Herd,
Oh yeah.
is
Classic.
would be my go-to commander for this for a couple reasons. First, its ability lets you give the ring over. Second, you're in blue, which has a lot of proliferation now. Um, that's it. It's blue, it has proliferation, and you can gift stuff really easily. You're in white, so you can use Enlightened Tutor, a lot of artifact tutors in blue and red. Basically, you're in actually three two pretty good artifact colors with red and blue, and then white has just like good supporting cards, so you can tutor up the ring really easily, and then you could just be passing it around. Um,
Oh yeah.
Also, at the beginning of your upkeep, draw. Yeah, and also you gain life and draw cards with the commander. So if you give, even if you have the ring, you can try to mitigate that life loss by having opponents have a lot of other stuff. Um, so that's probably what I would end up doing with the commander with this card if I were to build a deck around that. Um,
A couple other key notable things that you can do with this card is if you have Shouldered, there is no downside to this card. Because with the trigger on the stack of you lose life, you tap it and you gain 2 life for every burden counter on it because you're drawing cards.
it's actually
Uh,
upside because you net one life.
yeah. I'm thinking about putting this in my Starscream deck
Ooh, that'd be
because
nasty with Monarch.
you just you tap it when I have the Monarch and when Starscream is on the right side. He says whenever you draw a card while you have Monarch, target opponent loses 2 life. So you just tap it, you like deal as much damage as you can before while you're taking damage. Um, just a nice little thing you can do with that. And then with a artifact commander deck, you can just untap it a bunch and just get all your draws on it, like mitigating how many burden counters you're actually getting on it.
Yep, and notably it's indestructible and it can be sacrificed, so you can
Mm-hmm.
potentially just draw a bunch of stuff with like KCI out and Unwinding Clock or
Raiding
Clock of
Posts.
Omens. Yeah, because it's at the beginning of your upkeep, not each upkeep. So if you have Unwinding Clock out, you can draw a bunch of cards with it, and then if it gets too big of a threat, you can just sacrifice it. Install Artifact, which won't really matter too much, but you can make this, if you make this into a creature, it is indestructible. So if
Yeah,
you have a way of animating it, you do have a indestructible creature. It'll probably be a 4/4 with how a lot of those effects work. So you have an indestructible 4/4 that draws you a card and can just punch face. So I wish there was an old border version of this for my Esper Urza deck, because I'm keeping that deck strictly old border. But I do have a Shurikai deck that's kind of together that I might try this out in. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Unfortunately, it doesn't work in my artifact decks, but that's fine.
yeah. I think it's a. I don't want to say it's like an interesting card because it's pretty straightforward, but I think the flavor's really good, and I think you can definitely do some shenanigans with it by giving it to other people. Uh,
I know we're not a modern podcast, but do you think this will actually do anything in modern?
Absolutely not. So I think 4 mana in that format for like what this does, it's just gonna be way too slow. Um, Unfortunately, even
But
if you
like,
could like do some cheese, there are probably some cheese combo you can pull off by giving it a bunch of burden counters and then gifting it to somebody. But the issue then is if they untap with it with that trigger on the stack, they can also then draw a bunch of cards. So it depending on like what deck you're against, if they can kill you at instant speed, it's not going to matter.
I think the best in modern, the best effect on this card is the extra draw is fine. That's fine. It's not
The
crazy,
protection from
but
everything, though,
the
actually,
protection from everything is the thing. And if you can give it
yeah,
flash, then
yeah,
maybe you stop somebody from killing you after they go off and kill them on the crackback. Maybe.
yeah. I did forget that it has protection from everything if you cast it until your next turn. So
Yeah.
this does just hose burn decks, any combat decks really, because it's you have protection. So just in case you're kind of newer to Magic or don't quite understand protection, because it is a very weird mechanic, this might not actually stop you from dying to burn. So if protection means you can't be targeted by anything and you can't take damage or damage would be prevented. An important note is like cards like Skullcrack or um, Bone Crusher Giant. When an effect says you can't damage can't be prevented this turn, even though you can't be targeted, if something does deal just damage to you, um, that damage, even if you have protection, can still go through. So if they have ways of dealing non-targeted damage to you, you still will get hit and still will lose life. I don't know how to explain that well, but
Yeah, it's one of those like niche rule, like not niche rules, but
it's niche.
the
Yeah, it's so there are ways around it. It's just very difficult to do.
Yeah, I think it has the potential to be interesting, maybe just for that ability. I think the rest of the card is whatever. But it being an artifact in modern, with Karn and well, the Karn that can like tutor from your sideboard or whatever,
Yep. Uh,
um,
I
like
would
that has the potential to do weird things.
I would
But I don't think it'll be too big.
I would play this. I would try this out in Tron as in the Wish board, and just keep it as a one of against certain decks. So if I hit Tron or it's like the next turn, and I'm
Like
like, cool, I want to just make sure my Karn stays around and they can't interact with anything. Just ripping this out of the board and dropping it that turn after hitting like Tron, and then having a Karn out, this out, drawing a card, having protection. It doesn't give your cards protection, which is
correct.
another thing. So you just can't be like thought seized, Inquisition of Kozilek. You can't be bolted. Um,
Can't be attacked by creatures. That's the thing I think is actually important because what you could do is
yep,
swing out and then play the One Ring after you swing out.
it stops monkey.
Uh,
Um,
because what you could do is make a what seems like an unfavorable swing that isn't going to kill the opponent. There's a percentage chance that they just take it. You play the One Ring after the fact. They took all that damage and they're not going to be able to kill you that turn.
yeah, so we'll definitely see what happens with this. I wonder if we'll see paradoxical outcome decks just kind of abuse
Oh,
this, just returning it to your hand, playing it again, tapping it, drawing a card, then drawing a bunch of cards off paradoxical outcome. Maybe not in modern, but like in Legacy or Vintage, we might see that. I kind of want to try that in EDH because if you can just keep repeatedly getting this card back into your hand and then playing it, it'll be very hard for people to deal with you in particular. Uh, yeah, so we'll see what happens.
yeah.
So you want to go over the next card?
Yeah, I'll go over the next card. Next card is Mount Doom. It's a legendary land. It's a black-red land. The first ability is tap, pay 1 life, add a black or red mana. Next ability is generic black-red tap. Mount Doom deals 1 damage to each opponent. And the last ability is 5 generic black-red tap. Sacrifice Mount Doom and a legendary artifact. Choose up to 2 creatures, then destroy the rest. You can only activate this ability as a sorcery.
Um,
Um,
it's a untapped dual land. 1 life in EDH is literally nothing. Who cares?
mhm.
It deals 1 damage is fine. I don't think you can really abuse that. That's a lie. If you're playing some like landfall decks, you can definitely get infinite untaps on this and infinite mana. Um, if you somehow make it into a creature with like a Shia, you can give it infect and infect the table out. The last ability of the 7 mana, I don't know how often that'll come up, but it is a board wipe in a land slot, and lands generally aren't interacted with in Commander all that much.
Important things you can do with that last ability is if you know you have that ability in your deck, it's a board wipe in your deck that's stapled onto a land. That almost makes it like a dual face card in that perspective.
Yep.
Um, and if you have that deck, you can put the One Ring in it and have that flavor. But also there's probably a decent amount of legendary artifacts. If your commander is a legendary artifact, um, you can also do that. It's up to 2 creatures, so you don't have to save anything if you don't want to. And yeah, that middle ability is actually really good if you've got any damage doublers.
Yep.
Uh, because 3 mana for 3 damage spread across 3 people is all right. But once you do 3 damage across, once you do 6 damage across 3 people, and so on with damage doublers that exist in black and red, also, if you Exquisite Blood Sanguine Bond, um, it can trigger those.
It's
Uh,
deal damage, not life loss. Does this still trigger those? Hold on.
it'll still trigger them because damage is loss of life. Loss of life is not damage.
Yes, correct. Yeah, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So Exquisite Blood again, just you can deal 3. You can deal 1 to each opponent, gain 3. Um, we broke it. We broke Exquisite Blood.
Yeah, easy.
Not
For,
much is it yet. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's a very straightforward card, but that doesn't mean it's bad. That means that you should probably put it in your Rakdos decks.
Yep, no land types importantly, so you can't fetch it out or anything, which would be broken if you could. But it's an untapped duel that you pay 1 life for. just put it in. If you have red black in your deck, just get one of these. It's a board wipe when you need it. I don't know how often that'll come up, if ever. But even if you have one legendary artifact in your deck, it's worth it. Just even if you don't, I think this is actually just worth it because it's just an untapped dual land with
It
like some upside.
it also presents a thing you can just do if you've got nothing going on in your hand. If you've got nothing going on in your hand, you've got 3 other mana besides Mountain Doom active. Every turn cycle, you're dealing damage to your opponents,
Yep. So
and your opponent probably isn't interacting with it.
yep. So it's a great card. Just play it. You won't be upset about it. Uh, Gandalf the Grey. So this is a 5 mana. Is it Avatar Wizard 3 blue red for a 3/4? It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one that hasn't been chosen. You may tap or untap target permanent. Gandalf the Grey deals 3 damage to each opponent. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for that copy. And the last one is put Gandalf on top of its owner's library. So, quick thing, these aren't May triggers, so that fourth one will happen regardless. Um, so if I want to do like a blink deck with this thing, but you have to make sure you're casting that blink spell as the third spell at the latest, because if you do it as the fourth, the cast trigger will go on the stack, and then Gandalf's ability will go on the stack, and it will go just on top of your library.
Yeah. Unless you're stacking things even farther, yeah, because you could stack another spell on top of that, and then you don't pick anything.
Yeah, you'd have to do like 2 blink spells back to back, which would be awkward.
Well, or if you're not planning on, if you know you're casting a blink spell later, you can cast that one spell, wait for that, go have that trigger go onto the stack, cast another blink spell first, like
Yes.
at last. It gets complicated. Um, but yeah, Gandalf is so weird.
It is. One thing I want to do, and it's not good, is using Transmogrify, because if it's the fourth trigger and you have another creature out, you can Transmogrify, exiling like a token, and then it says that creature's controller reveals cards from the top of their library until you reveal a creature card. So Gandalf would be on top, so you just put it back onto the battlefield, and you just got rid of a token.
That's so. That's. I mean, if you've got a loop you're trying to set up, that can be actually pretty good. But
Again, I
that's
don't.
so uniquely weird.
It's just there's no real reason to do that actually, but you just have the option, so it's there.
I,
Um,
yeah, I don't think I'd ever want Gandalf as the commander. Um, like, I think he's much more fun in the 99 as just like you've got a 3/4 wizard in this deck. That has some abilities whenever you cast your spells, like a weird magecraft ability. Um,
yeah, it's not quite Magecraft because it doesn't say instant copy, or it only says cast, not when you cast or copy, unfortunately, because that'd
that's
be
true.
insane. I'm being pedantic, but it's just so people understand that casting and copying
Oh,
are two different things.
no,
Um,
you're correct.
so something interesting is it says Gandalf the Grey deals 3 damage to each opponent. So just I don't always mess this up, but I'll forget.
Hmm.
Commander damage is only combat damage, folks. So don't think you can win with combat damage. However, if you throw a curiosity or a um, craft, grafted exoskeleton onto Gandalf, it has infect or curiosity. You can draw 9 cards potentially with it because it's an enchantment. It's a blue enchantment that whenever a creature deals damage, you may draw a card.
Yeah, you're gonna want like equipment that can do that kind of stuff. Mostly because he's probably gonna get sent to the top of your library.
Yes,
Um, what like
lifelink works.
lifelink, lifelink. I was
Shadow,
about to say.
yep, Shadow Spear is great because you gain 9 life.
There is a. Oh my god. Give me 1 second. I'm looking up
You're good. While you look
a
that up,
specific robe.
you're good. So, what was I gonna say? Also, if you play this as your commander, you might want to run like stifle effects or just literally stifle to counter the fourth ability because you can do that. As just
That
instead
is
of blinking it, so you can just leave him out if you want. He won't do anything if he's out at that point, but that is an option.
that is quite funny. Um, oh my god. There's a robe from Baldur's Gate that I'm trying to find really fast. Oh no, that's combat damage. Never mind.
Oh
I
damn.
I was I was like, oh, does that work the way we want it to with this kind of thing? And the answer is no. Um, but yeah, he's just like a solid little value dude for your spells.
Yep.
Uh,
One thing I just thought of that might actually be really good with him is if you have a card like Future Sight, where you're able to play cards from the top of your library,
mm,
and then a lot of rituals, because if you have him out, you play a ritual, you use the ability to copy the ritual to then play another ritual to, I don't know, deal 3 damage, and you're able to do like High Tide or like Pyretic Ritual shenanigans. You could potentially just keep putting him back on top, bringing him back out, and then like repeating rituals over and over again, and just casting him from the top of your library, or using Sensei's Divining Top in conjunction with him.
oh yeah, that
Uh,
would work.
but you have to put top back on top of your library. So like, but there are definitely ways you can, I think, abuse the fact that he goes on top of the library and then recast him from there to abuse the copy instant sorcery spells. Of course, using the flicker effects would probably be easier. But if you do cast him, it does increase your storm count, which can matter if you're doing a combo like that. Try to like storm
Yeah,
off.
you can also set like a draw spell on for the fourth spell you cast, so that
Yep.
way his trigger will go. You'll put him on top of your library. You'll draw him. Um, and then if you've got any ways to like go really crazy with him after that, like of course, like it's very easy to say he goes like crazy with omniscience, but
Oh
everything
yeah,
does.
we broke
Um,
omniscience. God bless.
we it's yeah. Oh my god, landmark day. All it took was Lord of the Rings.
Um,
Um,
I'm trying to remember a card. I just can't remember how to spell the name. I'm an idiot. Let's see. Damn, I was hoping Brawl's Expertise might be really good because you can cast that, and
mm,
then you may cast a spell with mana value 4 or less. Um,
unfortunately,
expertise. Is there a red expertise? Carry Zev, but it's 2 mana. Yeah, Rishkar is the only one that would work with 5, so you'd have to be in Teamer. Um, yeah, I like this card. I think like I agree with you in the 99. It's probably better. I will,
which flavorfully correct.
and
Gandalf shouldn't be leading.
I think that's fine. I don't think that's a bad thing. If you play him as your commander, just run some clones, and you'll be happy.
Oh yeah, that'd be God. Helma the hosting him and then like casting a spell dealing 9 damage to each opponent.
Or Vile Duplication, and then using its ability to copy that instant or sorcery, so you immediately get 2 copies of him. So you have 3 copies of Gandalf out on the battlefield.
Yeah. Oh my god. Some
Uh,
crazy things.
yeah,
Uh
some really
Clones, actually just regular clones, not regular clones, but like if you have ways to like get if you're building this deck around making clones of him, you could build like a mirror box deck
yep.
um that revolves around because you're in blue red, you can get artifacts. You could revolve around getting rid of the legend rule and making clone effects of him and have them just like sent back to the top of your library.
Yeah, there are a lot of different. Phyrexian Metamorph is great because it's 3 mana and just a Phyrexian blue. Like there's a lot of things you can do with this. Um, but let's get on to the next one. Do you want to read this one for us?
Sure, it's Frodo, Sauron's Bane. He's 1 white mana, legendary creature, halfling citizen. He's a 1/2. First ability is a hybrid white black mana, hybrid white black mana. If Frodo Sauron's Bane is a citizen, it becomes a halfling scout with base power 2/3 and the ability lifelink. And then the next ability is 3 black mana symbols, so 3 black. If Frodo is a scout, it becomes a halfling rogue. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game if the ring has tempted you 4 or more times this game. Otherwise, the ring tempts you. We don't know what that means yet.
Great. I was just
we,
about to ask that. Have we? Do we know what that mechanic means?
as far as I'm aware, we have no clue what that means. If you know what that means, write it down in the comments below.
Yeah.
Inform people.
Um. So I have no idea how good this card's going to be because we don't know what that key mechanic is. It's a 1 mana commander, so you have another Lurrus option if you want to do a Lurrus companion deck because it's in blue white. I'm sorry, it's in white black.
Mhm.
So you can run this as a Lurrus deck. Um, it seems fine, but we don't know what that third ability is, and it being triple black pips is brutal. Um,
I think depending on how the ring tempts you, this is a really potentially mean Voltron commander. Like there's some ways you could like because this is turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. Like you get to that ability. Or all in one turn you get to that ability. Boot them up, suit them up, ship them out. Uh hit somebody, and depending on how the ring tempts you functions, we don't know how easy that's going to be.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
it becomes a rogue, so you could do black white rogues. I guess I don't know if I would, but um,
yeah,
yeah,
like
it all really depends on like what the ring tempting ability, like what that means and how that mechanic works, especially in Commander.
you're in the color of kill spells and equipment. So like moving things out of your way. Like there's a reprint of a card we're gonna see in a couple in like 2 cards that really works well if that's your plan to kill somebody with Frodo.
Yep.
Um, like it's quite doable, but it unfortunately all just depends on what the ring tempts you is.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
we don't have many. We don't have many commanders that just straight up say target player loses the game. Um, like in an easy fashion. Normally, it is you have to do something 4 times. Like he's technically similar to the blue black commander that puts like counters. Uh, she like shuffles herself back into the library.
Atrada.
Atrada. Yeah. So you can kind of think of him as similar to Atrada, but instead of being in blue black, you're in white black.
Yeah, and it's important to note it's if the ring has tempted you 4 more times. So
Correct.
presumably it'll be a positive effect, or some effect with like downside, but more
Yeah.
upside than downside. So we'll see.
We're gonna see a
Um,
couple more cards that also say it. Um,
yeah, but we don't know what it does. So those cards will really depend on what that mechanic truly is.
yeah.
All right, the Shire. This is a pretty straightforward one. It's a legendary land. It taps for green. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature, which is like the bear land from the Brothers War. You may pay 1 and a green, tap it, an untapped creature you control, and make a food token. As Miranda Kaisa got a Kuldakar or whatever, I don't know if Jund food is gonna be a thing, but this goes into that deck
I
really
mean,
easily.
it goes in Corvold.
Goes Corval. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, for like EDH, definitely Corvold. For modern, I wonder if Jund
Oh
food's gonna
yeah.
be a thing, just because it's a legendary creature, so you will have an untapped green source on turn 2.
I was watching.
Er,
There was a video I watched where somebody did like an infinite food token deck, basically, with time sieve. So it's doable.
yeah, it's not much to say. It's a good land. It's an untapped green if you're playing legendary matters, and you make a food, and you have to tap
Yeah.
an untapped creature. I mean, I don't think we have much else to say on this. Like, it's not nothing.
Put it put it in your weird tokens decks. That's it.
It goes in Shatterfang, and you're happy.
Yeah.
Um, the next one is Trailblazers Boots. Wes, you want to go over this one?
Yes, this is a it's not a West special, but it's I introduced this to our friend group a long time ago. Yeah. The name of this card is Lauren's Brooch. Lorien's Brooch. It's like a reskin of Trailblazers Boots. It's even got the Godzilla underbar that says Trailblazers Boots. This is a buy a box promo. It's a 2 mana, 2 generic artifact. Equipment. Equipped creature has non-basic landwalk and equipped 2. Now, what that means is if your friend is playing the Shire and you equip Lauren's Brooch or Trailblazer's Boots to your creature, they can no longer block you because they don't have just basic lands. If they have a non-basic land, your creature cannot be blocked while it's equipped with this. This is really good in Voltron commanders. It makes it to where, or if you've got a deck full of hit triggers, because you're just gonna get in. Because everybody in EDH, it doesn't matter what deck you're running, or you're probably running at least one non-basic land.
Yep. Good card. It sees no modern play. It won't. Is it even modern? It has to be modern legal. I think it is, but I don't think it'll see any
Should
play.
be.
Yeah, it's modern legal. It's not gonna see any play in modern. It's a good reprint for Commander. Um,
Yeah, it's a buy a box promo, so it's we don't know. I don't know if that means it's gonna be anywhere else, but it's not like an extremely expensive card. But it's always nice to have it show up again.
yeah, it was just reprinted in the Phyrexia All Be One Commander deck, so it's a $127 right now.
Yep.
Um, and this one is not pre-ordering yet, but yeah, it'll. If you like the art, pick one up. It'll probably be $5-6 is my guess for like, because it's not an in-demand card. So,
Correct.
uh, next card is a Halfling Peasant, which I don't know if we've had Peasant on a card type before. Um,
Yes, we have.
have we? Interesting.
Like, I believe there were tokens that were peasant tokens. And maybe that's it.
Oh, there are actually
There,
a lot of peasants, and there are a lot of them are from Midnight Hunt, and the recent Innistrad set.
yes.
Cool. And one from Eldraine. All right, didn't know that. Anyways, it's a 2-mana 2/1 a legendary. Samwise the Start Hound. It's a 2-mana 2/1 flash legendary creature halfling peasant. When it enters the battlefield, choose up to one target permanent card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. Return it to your hand. Then the ring tempts you. So, um, this is white card draw in a way because you're playing fetch lands or evolving wilds, and you play this on, I guess it'd be turn 3 technically, and you crack a fetch land or an evolving wilds, and you get to put that back into your hand, uh, and then you get tempted. We don't know what tempting means again, so we just don't know how good that's going to be. It does go into the Frodo deck if you want to build like a tempting ring deck because it's in white. This card in modern in particular, I think we might see. I'm glad they didn't make it a human because this might just slot into the humans deck because you have ways of getting humans back that have died or sacrificing them for indestructible and then getting them back. Um, because
I
it is when it enters the battlefield. So you can sacrifice a creature, give one of your creatures indestructible, flash this in, get it back that turn, and then play it again.
I think this actually goes well with the last card in this chunk that we're gonna see, because you can flash it. Because you could technically play it on your turn too. You just hold up 2 mana, you pass it to your opponent. If you're in white, blue, or something like that, uh, or any kind of control color kill spells or anything like that, you can just hold it up. You pass it over to them. If they don't do anything that you need to respond to, you play Sam. You get your fetch land back to your hand. Turn 3, you start swinging with Sam.
Yep. Also great after board wipes, or if you're gonna board wipe, you can board wipe, and this is only 2 mana.
Yeah,
So it's not unreasonable if you're doing a 4-mana board wipe like Wrath of God, that you can play this and just get the best target permanent that was put into your graveyard back into your hand. Uh, I don't know if I like this as a commander, but it does say when it enters the battlefield and not when you cast it. So if you can blank this with like Conjurer's Closet, Panharmonicon, or the new Elish Mom, you have a lot of ways to get just a lot of stuff back from your board, that or a lot of permanents that went to the graveyard this turn back. Um, yeah,
I think he's a good stealth commander, if that makes any sense. Like, you put him in your command zone and he presents value, but you can disguise what your deck is doing based on just having him in the command zone as opposed to something else.
Yep. Also, it's great in eggs or like artifact decks because if you get rid of a Ichor Wellspring or a Mishra's Bauble, you can play this. Oh god, in modern Mishra, the loop's gonna be Mishra's Bauble, crack it to draw a card, flash this in, get Mishra's Bauble back, play it again, crack it to draw 2 cards on the next upkeep. There's gonna be some disgusting loops with this.
Yeah,
Even in Commander, doing something with like Lotus Petal.
yeah. I think as opposed to Frodo, where we'll definitely need to know what the ring tempts you does, we don't need to know what the ring tempts you does for Samwise. He's already a good card, and whatever the ring tempts you does will just be added value.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, or it's terrible.
Yeah, I like this with Lotus Petal just because it you can play it, sacrifice Lotus Petal, add a white. if you play this and you get Lotus Petal back, you play it again for 0, and then crack it again. It essentially paid for the commander.
Even like one of the simplest things you can do is literally just block a creature. Like
Yeah.
make a trade and then you play Samwise, get your creature back.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of I'm thinking of a loop with Lotus Petal, and then you can do some ephemerate shenanigans where you Lotus Petal, ephemerate the commander, get it back. So you can do some like infinite, some like high storm count stuff with this.
Yeah. Like in a
Um,
Jeskai deck or something.
yeah, Jeskai deck, or just even like mono white. Just how many mono whites? There can be a lot of storm cards in mono white.
I don't know if there are any.
There is
Maybe
one because it's in a. I put one in a CDH deck I was working on.
oh.
So there is. Oop, I'm checking right now. I know there's at least one storm card in white. Hold on, let me narrow this down. Instant sorcery, allow partial type matches. Commander's white. So there's wing shards, which we're not really going to care about. Target player sacrifices attacking creature, but there is Astral Steel. It is 3 mana. If you know what this card does, good. It's an instant from Scourge. It's a 2 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +1/+2 until end of turn. Storm.
Huh.
So,
A storm pump spell.
yup. And it can cast different copies because each copy will go on the stack. So if you were to do something cute like that, where you could make this commander big enough and then just swing in,
Yeah.
and like giving it haste. So, though, I think as a commander, it'll be like a very obvious eggs combo commander. But I think in the 99, you can do some like really cute things with it.
A powerful uncommon.
For sure. The next one, do you want to go over real quick?
Yes. This is Gollum, Patient Plotter. A generic and a black legendary creature, halfling horror. When he leaves the battlefield, sorry. When Gollum, Patient Plotter leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you. You can pay 1 black mana to sacrifice a creature, return Gollum from your graveyard to your hand, activate only as a sorcery.
Yeah,
I think he's oddly going to be good in like decks where you're focusing around like I need to discard a card to activate an ability. Like that's the best place I can see him.
if you notice its toughness, it's a 1, and it dies to Skull Clamp.
Oh my god, you're right.
So it's a Skull Clamp target for 2 mana in Commander. This is going to go into my Tormod deck, assuming the Ring Tempts You is a good enough mechanic for that deck. Yeah, I like this card a lot. In the 99, as a commander, it's fine. You might
He's so
the
weird as a commander. And
how does let me see how a card works.
which card?
Great. I want to see how the commander storm cards worked, but it's when you
Hmm.
cast it from your command zone. Um,
It
so
isn't. It is important to note for all these halflings for like the commander storm cards, like they're pretty cheap as far as like cost goes. So if
yeah,
that's your goal, they're decent commanders to do that with.
yeah, that they're that's it. They're also all of these do go into the Frodo deck, and you can still play
Yep,
Lurrus. Um,
correct.
so we'll see what happens with them. It all depends again how what the ring tempts you mechanic is, and how good that truly is as a thing for like commander for modern. Because if it's like a rummage effect or a loot effect, it'll probably be like really good. But if it's you gain 1 life and get a I don't know, a tempted counter or something like that, it's like who cares?
Well, there's got to be some like presumably it'll be some way to be tracked because it seems
Yeah,
like at least Frodo cares about how many times you've done it, and they've been really good about things that you want to track be trackable.
yeah. My biggest fear is it's going to be like you lose 1 life for each time you're tempted because these effects seem pretty decent, and if it's anything like too busted, then the cards are just going to be so good. Because even like Gollum in modern, if the tempting is like really good, having unearth combos, being able to
It is,
like you can just do a lot of like really degenerate things. So we'll have to see. I'm curious. I'm curious.
We'll definitely discuss that at a later when
Once it
we get
comes
more
out.
news about it. Yeah.
Yeah. You cannot pass. It's a 1 mana instant. Destroy target creature that blocked or was blocked by a legendary creature this turn. Um, Fine removal. I'm probably not ever gonna play it. It seems like it's probably draft shaft. Um,
At,
it
at best, you play it in Voltron. At
uh,
best.
in Commander, it kills Ragavan.
Yeah.
So we're happy.
Like, it's a 1 mana kill spell. That's like the best thing about it. But
And it
it
kills like Omnaths and stuff. But
oh,
that's mostly for modern.
it blocks it blocks anything that blocked a legendary creature. That blocked or was blocked by a legendary creature this turn.
Yeah, so not bad in Voltron because your commander's legendary, so they'll presumably be blocking it and blocking it
Yeah.
with something that won't die.
Or if your deck is just all legendaries, like if you're running like a Relic of Legends,
Yeah,
like focus deck, which I think this set might make that really easy, considering every creature we've seen is legendary.
yeah.
Um,
But not much to talk about with this card. It's fine. I'm probably not gonna play it. Maybe in a budget deck, maybe in a Legendary Matters deck. But the next
yeah,
card I'm more interested in.
yes. Uh, the next card is Reprieve. It is one generic and a white instant. Return target spell to its owner's hand. Draw a card. This is the card that I was talking about. I think works great with Samwise because you can hold up that you have Reprieve, but you just have Samwise in hand or something like that.
Yeah, Reprieve is interesting because it gets around uncounterable. So cards like Supreme Verdict or any green cards that say this can't be countered because unlike Remand, this doesn't counter. This just returns it to its hand and removes it from the stack. And then you draw a card. So that's
Yeah,
great. So you can look at this as 2 mana draw card in white because if you play any free spell, you can just return that free spell to your hand yourself. Um, if you play something with Cascade, however, you still get the Cascade trigger because that trigger is separate from the card itself
resolution.
resolving. Correct. Yeah. So it's just
Oh,
like if you counter a Cascade spell, um, the Cascade still resolves because the Cascade is a separate trigger all onto its own.
I could definitely some deck like playing around with the idea of like just having like casting triggers, um, and just with Remand and Reprieve and things like that. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, I don't think this will see play in modern. Oh no, I'm sorry. Hold on. I think this will see play in modern, probably in
This
the
will see
sideboard.
play in modern.
What I
I can
wanted,
definitely see this being played in like a mono white deck in modern of some kind.
yeah. So what I wanted to do, but I realized you can't do it, is play it in the Cascading Rhinos deck because the issue is you can cascade into this and not into
Yeah,
the Rhinos. So don't do that. Um, it'll be good sideboard for as DNT Death and Taxes because it does get around Supreme Verdict.
yeah.
And sometimes all you need is a single turn to like get to win. And in Commander, I think people will find ways. You can throw this on an Isochron Scepter, very importantly.
Oh my god,
Um,
that's actually more fun, I think, than normal things you can put under an Ice Scepter.
yep. So it becomes 2 mana. You out tempo someone and you draw a card. Uh, I like this again with like Lotus Petal or any 0-drop artifacts because you're spending the 2 mana. It's 2 mana draw card, which if you're especially in like mono white, I think is fine. I'm less high on this card in white any other color decks because every other color has like pretty good card draw, and other cards in combination with whites like Orzhov and stuff have good card draw. So I don't think you necessarily want to play this in strictly casual EDH. In CEDH, you can return a Thassa's Oracle to someone's hand. The stack trigger still goes on the stack though. No, it doesn't enter. Yeah,
It doesn't
you
matter.
you can return Thassa's Oracle to their hand.
Yeah,
Um,
you
so
can catch somebody's Thassa's Oracle, like getting somebody's like key spell at the end of their combo, just in general.
yep. It's important also that a spell has to be on the stack, so you can't return a permanent that's already out to someone's hand to draw a
Correct.
card. So you have to do this at instant speed.
I think this has play in like a Bant Enchantress deck, actually. because a lot of the Enchantress cards are
Cast
cast
triggers.
triggers.
Yep.
So you have the utility of gaining a bunch of cast triggers, returning that card to your hand, probably casting it again, gaining a bunch of other cast triggers, and drawing a card.
Also, you could just put someone's commander back in their hand if you want to be really degenerate. you can just
Yeah.
you can just stop someone's commander from resolving for
If
presumably a turn.
if your commander has a cast trigger, you do this to your own commander and cast it twice.
If it's cheap enough, I
Like
would do that. Yeah.
if it's cheap enough, like there's some nutty things you can do.
All right. And then there are two commander cards we can briefly talk about. Um, let's go. The
Yeah.
basic lands are pretty. They're a map of Lord of the Rings. I really don't care because I don't know Lord of the Rings that well. But if you like Lord of the Rings, check it out. Um, so we're not gonna go over the reprints. I think we'll wait till we see more information on those. But
Yeah,
briefly,
they're
there's a
interesting
great
and weird.
yeah, there's a box topper, Great Henge, Ensnaring Bridge, and Wasteland reprints. We don't know what the box toppers are to. I'm assuming either set boosters or collector boosters are my guess, because those are high value cards. But in terms of the commander decks themselves, are these commander? Do we know are these precons or are these um, like the
We
set booster commander cards? Did they say anything?
we don't know if these specifically are like set booster one, as far as I'm aware. Are set booster ones or the precons. I think they'll probably be showing the precons first. So that makes sense to me.
Great. So we don't know, but we'll hopefully we know soon. So Radagast, Wizard of Wilds, is a 4 mana, 2 generic, green and blue for a 3/5 Avatar Wizard with Ward 1. Beasts and birds you control have Ward 1, and whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, choose one. Create a 3/3 beast, or create a 2/2 bird with flying. It's a green beast and a blue bird. I love this card. I want to put this in that new Thanos deck, not Thanos, Thanos deck that makes
Yeah,
copies of beasts and
beasts and
birds.
birds.
Yeah, beasts
Uh-huh.
and birds. I love birds, and I had a foiled out bird tribal deck for a little while, like years ago, and now we're getting all these fun tools, and yeah,
You could put this in bird lock. Gives your commander ward.
it does give my commander a ward. I'm not going to, but I could, because I think that deck's average CMC is like 2.6.
Ah, fair.
Yeah, so it's any spell with mana value 5 or greater. Doesn't have to be birds or beasts. So this is great if you want to do like either like a Simic Cascade or just like a Simic Ramp deck. You kind of just get incidental value from birds and from spells to get birds or beasts.
It's also important to note that you can. Uh, One of our friends mentioned this as a fun idea for the deck. Is you put in the deck a bunch of things that are 5 CNC or higher, that have alternative either casting costs or abilities.
True.
And then you can run the hippo as your companion,
Oh,
the one
Kamoga.
that's yeah, which is rather funny because then you can just like alternate casting cost things and whatnot. Also, he doesn't care about how much mana you spend on something; he cares about how much the mana value was. So if you have cost reduction, um, it's pretty great in that instance as well. Especially if it's like colorless things. If you got like a 5 mana colorless thing, but you reduced it to 0, you just get it and a 3/3 beast.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of really cute things you can do with this. It's I like it because the flavor, but it is literally just a generic good Simic commander.
Yeah,
Um, Next, you want to do the next one?
sure. Last one though, I think it's the last one
Yep.
as well. Sam Loyal Attendant, one generic, green and a white, legendary creature, halfling peasant. Partners with Frodo Adventurous Hobbit. We have not seen Frodo Adventurous Hobbit yet. Um, but Sam's next ability is at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a food token. Food tokens are artifacts that you pay 2, tap and sacrifice it. You gain 3 life. And his last ability is activated abilities of food you control cost 1 less to activate. And he's a 2/4. So just kind of generically gets you a food every turn. Um, and that can be fine. Depending on what Frodo does, they could be like a decent like token pair, depending on what Frodo also gives us.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it. This is one of the face commanders for the food and flavor, which is an Abzan food precon.
Huh.
So these will be partner commanders, probably on the inside, probably not the unless they have partner helms, which they could do, but they haven't done that before, as far as I know.
Well, you said that they are it's an Abzan one, right?
Yep. So the partner will be either black, green, or black, white,
Yeah.
or just black. They've done that too, where you just have like the one colored commander, which is also I think fine. Um,
Yeah.
this
So
is
I mean,
cute. I like the food idea. I like that it's only 1 mana to gain 3 life instead of 2. I'm glad this isn't in blue because my first thought was Unga Bunga Urza Chief Artificer
yeah.
or High Lord Artificer. um,
Also, if for some reason you could give your foods other abilities, those abilities will also cost one less. I don't know what those could be.
True.
Um, but that is something to think about.
Guillaume's great in this. It's a Golgari commander that makes food for each creature that enter the battlefield under your control that turn.
Mm,
Corvold, obviously, but he's not in white, so you actually never mind. You can unless you go 4-color food. Thank God it's Abzan.
you can put Ginger Brute in the deck for
Yep. Cauldron
fun
Familiar
reasons.
because you're original and creative.
It's actually great with Ginger Brute because it makes its can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste ability free. So you just pay
It
0 mana, make it make it unblockable unless the creatures have haste.
because it's a food. That's the dumbest thing. How many
Yep,
cards? Wait, I have to look now.
it's not that many.
What? It's an artifact type. It's interesting. So, Golden Egg is a 2 mana dork that draw 2 mana artifact that you can pay 1, sack it to add 1 mana of any color. Or so that's free. And there is a free food token from Unfinity. It is 2 and a green for a 2/2 Death Touch, but you just sacrifice it to roll a dice and gain life, so it's actually irrelevant. So Ginger Brute and Golden Egg are the 2 non-token cards that have the food type that you could include in this deck that makes sense.
Yeah, for now they could have more, I guess,
For
but
sure.
that'd be weird.
Um, and that's it for those cards. Um,
Hmm.
let's talk. We're gonna just do a great segue right into the RCQ that would happen this weekend.
Speaking of an adventure, we had an adventure last weekend.
True. So, for those of you who don't follow me on Twitter, you should. Bathroom MTG, link below. We I went to the RCQ with 2 of my friends. Wes works at the store and is working on becoming a judge, so that's fun. I played Mono Blue Spirits. We had a friend on Jund Sacrifice, and then another one of our buddies. They were on what we're calling what did we agree on? Was it Blood Shrapnel? Was that the
Yeah,
yeah? So basically, I'll have to find the original deck list because he's modified it since, but maybe I can get that up. He's like, I want to play Croxa. And I'm like, okay, well, I made you this blood burn deck for modern. Let's just port this over to Pioneer. And that's what we did. And Shrapnel Blast is legal in Pioneer. And it was just a bunch of vampires from their most recent Innistrad set that makes blood tokens, some flyers that make blood tokens, all vampires, 4 Shrapnel Blast, 4 Croxa. He did have like 4 Thoughtseize and Fatal Push, so the sideboard actually wasn't atrocious. I was practicing my deck for like a week and a half. I was doing pretty well online. I went 2-3. So talk about me first because I'm the host and ha ha ha.
yep.
Game 1 was against Esper Greasefang. It went to game 3. I had lethal on board. They top decked the island they needed for Supreme Verdict on 4. Blew me out. Unfortunate, but even they said they got lucky. So it happens. Match 2 was against Is It Creativity? Again, another game 3. We were down to just like no cards in hand each. I was just beating face with Faceless Haven. I made an egregious misplay. So I had a Slip Out the Back and an Island and a Faceless Haven in hand. They had a Kiki Jiki, they had the token Kiki Jiki out, not the full one, just the no, it was the full. Actually, it was the full one. It was the Saga's backside,
Mm-hmm.
and I, instead of playing my Faithless Haven that I had in hand to help pay for my one that was already out because I knew they were gonna block or had a removal spell, I tapped all three of my blue sources, paid for the Faceless Haven, and then swung with it. And instead of playing my island, I played my other Faceless Haven because I didn't want to have summoning sickness. Literally in the car yesterday, I realized this is the one situation where I don't play my land main phase 2, and I play the other Faceless Haven to help pay for the first one. Because then I still have my blue up, because next turn they creativity'd their token into a Hullbreach Horror and killed me. And I was so sad because it was going to be a really close game. There was no guarantee I was going to win, but that misplay cost me the game for sure.
Yeah.
Game 3 was Abzan Greasefang. I 2-0'd them in less than 10 minutes. I 2-0'd them. Game 4 was Mono Green. Went to game 3 again. I had lethal on board, and they top deck Nykthos and comboed off and beat me. And I was out of the top 8 at that point. And then match 5 was against our friend who's playing Jund Food. Normally they actually do really well against spirits, but they were just not drawing well at all, and I 2-0'd them in like 10 minutes again. Come to find out, all 3 of my losses, all of them top 4'd the event. So I feel less bad about losing to them, and they were close games. The fun thing, though, is my friend bringing the Blood Shrapnel deck. First time playing 60-card Magic, as far as I know.
At least in like any real sense, like
In any
actually
tournament
going to,
sense, even that's
yeah.
including FNMs. I've never played it like a 60-card FNM. Went 3-2 with his Blood Shrapnel deck, and top 8'd and got 7th place
Oh yeah.
at an RCQ, and it was the most glorious thing because he was just shrapnel blasting people for 10 damage.
Yeah, because people just didn't know how to deal with it. Like, how do you fight just 5 damage to the face? You don't. You just take it.
It's also not like a meta deck, so it's like you don't have to sideboard
Yeah.
against it. It's Rakdos, so who cares if you like Thoughtseize them? He has 4 Croxes, so Thoughtseize isn't Thoughtseize isn't awful against him. I think he went up. He said against 3 Rakdos mid-range decks. He went up against 3 Rakdos mid-range, mono green, and I actually don't remember what the other player was on.
I don't
They
remember
had
either.
Terra Sunder. I'm assuming Abzan Greasefang is probably the last because there's a lot of
Yes,
that deck.
it was that one.
Yeah, so he played well, got lucky, and top 8 with that deck, and we've just now tuned it, so now it's actually it's almost Vampire Tribal.
Yeah. I know that one of his games, he could have won because he didn't realize that his opponent didn't have as many vampires as he did. So if he just had realized that, he could have just
Vampires
board wiped
ninjas.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It was very funny from my perspective because I was like I was getting reports from the front basically while I'm like dealing with customers and everything like that. We'd have a round end and I'd be like, okay guys, what's the report? Who's done what? And round 1 it was Jund deck lost, Spirits lost. My friend who was expecting to get absolutely roasted won. And I was like, interesting. And then it proceeded to almost continue that pattern.
It was so annoying. I was like, oh my god, it was so frustrating. Not frustrating in like the sense that our friend did well. I'm happy for him, but it was just like, I'm ready. I think I can top 8 this thing, and it's just like shrapnel blast. Like, all right, yeah, you right.
Yeah, you walked in with some amount of like confidence. And it
Rightfully
just
so.
rightfully so, you did good. It's just that the people that you got paired with just did a little bit better. And
Yeah,
that happens sometimes.
it's them be the beats because I mean those people have been doing RCQs for a long time, and none of them have, from my understanding, at least the ones I talked to about it, hadn't top 8'd yet, and they were at a lot of RCQs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
I'll
happy
be
that they finally did that and like did well. I'm upset it was at my expense, but you know what? It was a good time. Our friend top aided. There's another one next weekend. I don't know if I'm going to it yet. I'm hoping I can, um, because I
I'm
would love to run this back.
I'm genuinely curious to see if anybody adjusts their game plans based on a deck that won't be there.
I
Or if I hear a bunch of people saying that they're playing Shrapnel Blasts. That's what I'm hoping for.
God, I wish. No, the only thing I'm doing is I found my March of Swirling Mist, and it was in a deck, and I just looked in that deck 3 times, and I couldn't find it, and I found it this morning. So that's
Ah,
the only difference. I wanted to bring it because it gets around Supreme Verdict because I can phase out all my creatures if I have enough mana,
or cards in hand.
or I need either 2 blue cards to like protect 4 creatures, or I can just pay 4 mana.
Yeah.
And that would have saved me against Supreme Verdict. So that's the only card that I wanted and I just couldn't find. So I'll run the list back with maybe 1 or 2 of those. But all in all, it was a good RCQ weekend. It was fun. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's it for the podcast
That's it for this week. Or this month, I guess.
this month. Yeah, monthly podcast right now. If I get enough viewership and enough interest in it, I'll definitely start doing them bi-weekly and then weekly. It's just a time commitment right now is not really possible with my work schedule
Yeah.
and my articles and my other responsibilities, especially while planning a wedding.
You're a busy man.
Yeah, it's been. Got a PlayStation 5 and I haven't been able to play God of War like I wanted to. Like I've played a lot, but not a.
Not enough.
I've been working a lot more and getting like YouTube stuff done. So, but all
Mm-hmm.
good. Wes, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on you know what? I'm just gonna use my regular. Uh you can just find me on Twitter, Axel Explode. My picture is of the old Rankin Bass Santa Claus. Uh Very actually fitting for us talking about Lord of the Rings. But yeah, that's me. That's just my personal Twitter. Yeah, if you want to message me or anything, yeah, that's it. Or you'll see me in the comments. I'll post as well. Axel Explode, probably.
Yeah, I'll have his Twitter linked in the video description below. You can find me and all my socials in the video description as well. Again, don't forget to give this video a like if you liked it, a dislike if you didn't, and leave a comment for any feedback or suggestions you'd like to have for the next video. I'm hoping to get this podcast on actual podcasting platforms for the next episode while I figure out some recording stuff because I just need to get a slightly better idea of what the hell I'm doing. Um,
Yeah.
that's it. Make sure to look out for my article again next Saturday with the accompanying video. And oh, if you're watching this, it should be before the 20th. So I'm trying to get to 200 subs by the 20th. So that's next Monday. So this video goes out on Saturday. So in 2 days. So if you want to go ahead and make sure to subscribe, get me 500 subs, that'd be great. And as always, this has been Ben with Bathroom Brews MTG. And remember, always wash your hands. Cool.
Yeah, that went well. I'm gonna stop recording now.
Perfect. God, that was an hour and a half. All right. Well, let's save project. Oh, I'll have to get back to work. Shit, I didn't think it'd take that long. That's okay. This was fun. Episode 2.
Oh yeah, I just have to. Do you want me to save it as a project, or do you want me to export it?
WAV file is fine. Yeah, WAV file is fine because I'm literally just gonna throw it through my filter software. I usually edit out like breaths and stuff, but with the podcast, how long this shit is,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna edit all this audio because it would take me. I don't have enough time. If I had more time in the day to do it, I could listen to it like over and over again. But I simply, and then I could just. That WAV file's gonna be long as. Oh shit! I need to stop OBS.